weekend. We're going to have her covering the coronation tomorrow during the morning hours as well. Martha, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. So what can we expect to see?
Well, you know, this is the first time that this has happened in 70 years. I know there have been 3 big royal events over the course of this year. We had the Jubilee and then very kind of unexpectedly the funeral just a few months after that of Queen Elizabeth. And now we have the coronation of King Charles III, which is going to happen here tomorrow at Westminster Abbey. He was just 4 years old when he witnessed his mother's own coronation. So he's been waiting for this job for 70 long years. And there's a lot of drama in between then and now, including the fact that now Queen Camilla will be at his side after everyone remembers the fairy tale wedding to Diana and the birth of their 2 boys. And this fairy tale sort of split wide open. But they're trying to put it all back together and get the royal family on the right page tomorrow and hope that they can allow this whole monarchy to continue here.
I know you're going monarchy crazy there. I don't know how much Hunter Biden talk is over there in London, but it kind of hit hyper speed a little bit, Martha, as we find out now about the recruitment letter that Michael Morell that put out, for example, to John Brennan. And it's pretty amazing, considering the impact of it, how simple it was. It simply said, by the way, he simply said this: we want to give the VP a talking point to use in response. And what he's talking about is the debate that was coming up, the story about the laptop. They wanted to tell everyone it was not legitimate. And he says, and John Brennan's retort was, sign me up. So then suddenly Joe Biden says 51 intel agents say the laptop is classic Russian disinformation. You remember that debate? What kind of effect did that 51 intel agents have on that debate and that point?
I sure do remember that night. I was in the room, and it was a big moment because everybody was wondering what kind of impact Hunter Biden's laptop might have on the coming election. And it's really stunning, Brian and Rachel and Lawrence, when you look back at this and you read these documents, you look at these emails, and you see this coordination going on. And the reason that it's so stunning is because these former CIA directors and the rest of these officials basically did this on a hunch, right? And a desire to, quote, help Biden win in the election. And at the same time, remember, in October of 2020, you had John Ratcliffe, who was the current director of national intelligence, saying that there was no indication that there was anything on that laptop that was Russian information. And he believed that it was exactly what it appeared to be. The laptop full of images and emails and things that were quite scandalous for the president's obviously troubled son.
Yeah. Martha, what does this mean for the press? Because they took them at their word. There was no curiosity to dig in the story. They actually suppressed the story and just took these talking points as well.
Yeah, I think back to the New York Post, who broke this story, and it was taken down in coordination on social media, on Facebook and other places, because they felt that it could be feeding into this Russian disinformation notion. Did they? Or did they want to be part of what Mike Morell called sort of a campaign? He didn't use that word, but an effort, I think is fair, to help President Biden, to help Vice President Biden become President Biden. And I think it's just, you know, you see why even here we see people sort of wondering about institutions and the faith that they have in them. Clearly, that's a huge issue at home in the United States. And I think this is a story that is going to really hit people hard in terms of the acceptance that these really, you know, officials that we consider to be prestigious are willing to sign on to something when they really didn't have any evidence that it pointed in the direction of Russian disinformation.
You know, Martha, they said that this letter was, of course, to help Joe Biden. There's a lot of polling that shows that if people had known about this when they went to the ballot box or had known it was true, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. And I think it says something like 14%. It could have changed the election, many people would argue, based on that polling. But I guess the question I have is, why would 51 intelligence officers want Joe Biden to win and not Donald Trump? Why were they so interested in helping Joe Biden versus Trump? I think that's a question that needs to be answered. And the other one, Martha, is, you know, what is the impact on our faith in institutions? I mean, I know for myself, I don't trust our intelligence agencies anymore. I'm done with them.
Well, you know, it's a very serious breach, and you would think that these individuals would feel so strongly about their own reputations that they would never put them on the line if they didn't have a very strong sense. Now, they can pick apart this letter and say, you know, well, we thought it had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, and maybe they can seek to distance themselves with some sentences in there that make it sound like they weren't 100% sure. But the impact is clear. The impact on that they were handing him this talking point on the debate stage, and the impact, as you say, of voters who say, gee, I might have thought differently about it. And when you look at it, you know, presidential elections in the U.S. these days come down to 100,000 plus votes in a few states.
Martha, he knew it was a lie when he said it.
That's right.
He knew it was his son's laptop. He knew those emails were his. He knew they were his own. He knew everything was on that was real. They knew about all the addiction, the photos, everything that took place. He had no problem looking in the camera and telling the American people and a worldwide audience that 51 intel agents says that this is Russian disinformation when it wasn't. And a side note, it also poisons the relations, further poisons the relations between the U.S. and Russia. Because you know who else thought it knew it wasn't Russian disinformation? The Russians. So we don't want to let foreign policy play a role in this or anything. But let's talk about why you're there. We have a newly unearthed photo that shows 1953, a young future king kind of bored at his mom's coronation. How did they hold this back so long?
I think that's been out there. He was, you know, I think he was not even quite 5 years old at that point, so very young to be sitting through. It was a 4-hour ceremony back then, so the kids will get a little bit of a break this time around. It's only going to be about 2 hours, but I think it's kind of a cute picture because, you know, it definitely humanizes Charles, which there's been a lot of effort to do over the last several years, and sort of show the, you know, more human, softer side of now King Charles. So I think it's a funny picture. George, obviously, William and Kate's son, is going to participate in this. He's 9 years old, quite mature, and I would imagine that, you know, we may get a few faces and moments of photos of those kids in there as well tomorrow. All children get bored at these things eventually.
You know, I just
right?
found out, Martha, they just informed him at that moment that he's going to have to wait 70 years to be king. So he was a little upset.
Who knew? Brian, you're such an insider. That's a great scoop.
I
Way
should
to
have
go.
had a second source.
So, Martha, you, Ainsley, and Pierce are going to be doing special coverage for us tomorrow of the coronation from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks so much, Martha.
Looking forward to it. Great to be with you guys.
Martha always wanted to host a morning show, and she finally will on Saturday. There you go.
But you know that about me, Brian, right? I don't like it that early.
Yeah, last time your husband warned me, whatever happens, I don't want my wife doing a morning show. It's too early.
I know.
Right.
You don't want to see her, before coffee. It's not a good thing.
All right, thanks, Martha.
You guys are
Appreciate it.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye, Martha.
Bye-bye.
We're really looking forward to tomorrow and being with you.
So Brett Baer had a great interview last night with Jim Harbaugh, head coach, University of Michigan. And I was surprised at the topic, but then hearing him talk, you saw how committed he was. We always focus on the big sports stars and big signing day. And then you go to a big school and it's exciting, even if you're a student. But what about those who choose the skills and the trades? And to have a major coach, maybe the most famous coach in college football, top 5, go ahead and emphasize signing day for those signing up for skills and the trades. That was so important last night. Almost something we used to see Mike Rowe doing.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to say anything, I'll toss to the soundbite.
Right.
I was just say that. Let's just let him say it.
Let's listen.
My dad always told my brother John and myself, when it comes to 18 years old, you're going to be off the books. So you need something after high school. You need education after high school, whether it's 2-year college, 4-year college, trade school, or the military. One of those 4, you two boys will be going into when you're 18 or have graduated from high school, because you're not going to be on the books here anymore. That's really what I was speaking to the students about today, the importance of grit, tenacity, hard work, and how that's going to benefit them now and for the rest of their lives. Same thing that I tell our football players on the football field.
Yeah, you know, financial independence is very important. My father, when he graduated from high school, was told you can go into the military, you can go work in the mines. He lived in a town where a lot of people went and worked in the copper mines. He chose the military. But as a minority family, financial independence is especially important because there are a lot of forces trying to control you and make you part of their system, part of the Democrat Party. Financial independence is the secret to the American dream. And it's really great to see people talking about it.
Also, college just isn't for everyone.
Yeah.
It's just not. And I don't understand why some people get these social science degrees and they get in so much debt and they're never going to be able to pay it back.
Yeah.
I think this is a smart move. Back home in Garland, Texas, where I'm from, right outside of Dallas, a lot of the high schools now are offering trades. So the kids that don't want to go to college, they can be an auto body tech, they can be hair and beauty, nails and all that type of stuff. I think it's great for society.
Right. I love it because the perception was, well, if you can't go to, if your grades aren't good, go to the trades. We have to change that perception. That if you don't go to college, maybe the parents feel that they aren't successful parents because they want the kids aspiring, go to the next level. But now with the money they're paying and the perception changing, Mike Rowe, for the first time, who had the same message as Jim Harbaugh, said, I feel optimistic that people are recognizing the trades again because he's able to give out his scholarships for those kids that want to be able to use their hands.
You know, Brian, when Sean was in Congress, we came from a manufacturing town, which is where we lived at the time, and part of the effort to recruit young people was you got to talk to the parents because of exactly what you said. It's usually the parents who are nervous about letting their kids go into the trades because they feel like it's not prestigious enough or they might not make enough money. I've been thinking a lot about how this administration is trying to transition our entire economy, which is totally unrealistic, to electric. But we don't even have enough electricians right now, let alone for a transition.
We don't have enough mechanics.
No.
And they're getting these new cars in, and you need to be almost a computer tech, be able to work on them. More like using your instinct and going in there and figuring it out. Because if you don't go to training every 6 weeks, you come back to the dealership, and you don't even know what you're doing on these new cars.
So true.
They can't get people to do it. And they say for every 5 plumbers that retire, only 1 goes back in the workforce.
I believe that.
That's unbelievable.
I believe that.
All right, let's go up to Ashley Strohmeyer, who will not be a plumber. We're glad that she is a news person.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
What a toss.
You know what you're doing, Ashley, that's more important than a newscaster? You're growing a baby human.
I am
We're
growing
so happy
a
for
child.
you.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much. And yes, I'm not going to be a plumber. I don't know if that would be my thing, Brian, but thank you. We are going to start your headlines with this. Protesters taking over the streets of New York City last night. They're calling on Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg to prosecute the Marine veteran involved in the chokehold death of a homeless man on a subway train. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is calling for calm as authorities investigate, but Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was quick to label the death of Jordan Neely a, quote, public murder. Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak is sounding the alarm about the possible dangers of AI. Watch this.
Artificial intelligence is only going to be at the perusal of humans. Now, there are bad actors in the human world that try to trick us. AI can construct content, but it also has horrible problems. Some are like hallucinations. Sometimes it takes a side that we know is totally inaccurate.
He warns that AI data misuse could further divide our country, and that could be even more harmful than its potential impact on jobs and the economy. The April jobs report comes out in just over an hour, and experts are predicting a rise in the unemployment rate to 3.6%. Forecasts show hiring is set to increase by 180,000. That's down from 236,000 in March. Job growth has fallen every month since the start of the year. And it is Cinco de Mayo. The annual holiday commemorates Mexico's 1862 victory in the Battle of Puebla over the Second French Empire. This special day often includes feasts, parades, all-night parties, and mariachi bands. Let's hit it, guys.
Right.
Created. Why are they creating it? Because they want to distract from what has actually happened with all the casualties they have with this May 9th celebration coming up. Which is their victory over the Nazis in Germany in World War II. And the harsh reality is Russia has failed miserably in Ukraine with their ground forces and even with their air campaign. As we begin to look towards the Ukrainian gathering momentum now, and starting their offensive operation.
Right. So how close are they to having the armaments and the strategy to move forward on the counter offensive that we expected this spring? Do they have enough tanks? Do they have enough munitions? What have the Europeans done?
Well, the Ukrainians will tell you they never have enough, but they got a fair amount of what they wanted. They wanted 300 tanks. They got 250. They've got about 1,500 plus armor vehicles that are not tanks, and most of that has come from the Europeans, and that's commendable in terms of that. And actually, the training of tens of thousands of Ukrainians in preparation for this, while the United States did some training of Ukrainians, the Europeans did most of it, and while we continue to harp on the fact that the United States is the only country really providing significant aid to the Ukrainians, it just isn't true. I mean, when you look at it as a percentage of GDP, there's about 5 or so countries that provide more support as a percentage of the wealth that's available in that country than the United States. So it's an unfair characterization to say the Europeans aren't in this. They are really in it, and they understand fully that Russia needs to be defeated in Ukraine now.
And I just want to bring you to this quote with 20 seconds left. Our DNI director, Avril Haines, stated the Russian forces are likely unable to conduct a significant offensive in all of 2023. Does the Institute for Study of War believe that too?
Yes, based on the facts that we've had, which is pretty alarming, Putin mobilized about 300,000 conscripts and reservists, trained them up in Belarus, and then put them into existing forces, some of his very best forces, to be frankly. And they conducted an offensive over the last 2.5 months. And that offensive was designed to take the Donbass. This is the second time they've tried to take it. They tried to do it at the end of last year and failed. They have failed in that mission. We don't see them being able to generate any significant offensive capability, even if they mobilize more forces to do so. Why is that? Because they're putting those forces into units that are poorly led, they have low morale, they're not properly trained. And when you don't have the will to fight, that is such a foundational element of success. Right. And you lack that, it's very hard to succeed.
General Jack Keane, thanks so much. Should be a good spring for the Ukrainians. Let's hope. We're pulling for it. General, thank you.
Yeah, have a great weekend, you and the team.
You got it. And it's such a perfect transition to what's happening this weekend. Coming up at 8 o'clock, at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. Please join me because we have Will Hurd. He's leading the AI push and the security needed. Richard Dreyfuss, he's as concerned as you are about a lack of civics in our country. The legendary actor will be on set with me. Douglas Murray will put everything in perspective that we've been going over, especially this case in New York with the subway and the homeless person who lost his life, along with Badia Unger Sargon of Newsweek and Joe Machi, one of the key writers to Gutfeld's success. We'll find out what Greg Gutfeld is really like as he joins me on set. Meanwhile, still ahead on this show, a former California teacher claims she was fired for refusing to hide her students' gender transitions from their parents, and now she warns this could happen to anyone. She will join us live. Plus, a Massachusetts college says you can't use the word field because
Heike was attacked from behind on Friday. Police found the suspect after releasing the surveillance video. He was arrested at this apartment located just 1 mile from the trail. Lauren Heike was only 29 years old. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon and Google co-founder Larry Page will be deposed at the end of the month over alleged links to Jeffrey Epstein. The depositions are expected to last for 2 days. Epstein allegedly tried to recruit Page as a client of JP Morgan. U.S. Virgin Islands, where Epstein owned an island, is suing for unspecified damages. They're accusing the firm of benefiting from sex trafficking by the late financier. A Massachusetts college is banning the word field in one of their programs. The Smith College for Social Work changed the name of their Office of Field Education to the Office of Practicum Learning. The college says the move is intended to represent their commitment to anti-racist work. Putting out this statement, SSW's core principles encourage us to center the lived and historical experiences of Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color. We recognize that language is powerful and that phrases such as going into the field or field work may hold negative associations. And those are your headlines, Lawrence.
Stop it.
Yep.
Thanks, Ashley.
You're welcome.
A former California teacher is suing her district over claims she was fired for refusing to hide kids' gender transitions from their parents. Jessica Tapia says she was discriminated against for her Christian beliefs and warns that what happened to her can happen to anybody. Jessica Tapia joins us along with Vice President and Legal Counsel for Advocates for Faith and Freedom, Mariah Gundeer. Thanks so much for joining the program. Why did you decide to inform the parents?
Yeah, great question. You know what? It really comes down to the fact of the matter that no teacher should have to lie to parents really about anything. No teacher should have to lie to their students about anything. And really no teacher should have to lie to themselves and, deny their own beliefs and morals to save their salary.
Yeah, and so they fired you as a result of this. What did they say?
Right. So they essentially presented me with 3 directives that I voiced to them I could not comply with because they were against my beliefs. And so that's when they said, well, then we'll hold a religious accommodation meeting and see if and how we can accommodate you. And so I went through the meeting. They questioned me up and down, left and right on my faith. And at the end of that, they decided we cannot accommodate your religious beliefs. Therefore, we're releasing you from employment.
Unbelievable. Mariah, what is the legal case here?
Well, this is a very strong violation of the free exercise clause as well as the free speech clause. We have a clear religious discrimination here because they retaliated against her because she would not agree to policies that violated her religious rights, as well as agreeing to policies that compelled her to affirm beliefs that she didn't agree with, such as pronouns, as well as violating her viewpoint, encouraging other teachers' viewpoints and encouraging them and allowing them to express their viewpoints in classrooms and on their social media, but discriminating against Ms. Tapia for expressing her viewpoints because they didn't go along with the school's ideology. So this is what this case is about. It's about discrimination.
Mariah, do you worry that you're going to get a fair shake in court, considering it's California?
Well, that's always a really good question, but I think we have a very good case here because the reality is the Constitution is very clear. You cannot discriminate against individuals because of their religious beliefs. And we have facts that are clearly outlined in the complaint that show that they retaliated against her for her beliefs, but did not do so with other teachers for expressing their viewpoints. And the Supreme Court has also been very clear when it comes to the free exercise of religion. And so I'm always skeptical with California, but the reality is they have to follow the United States Supreme Court. And we feel confident the Supreme Court supports our case.
Yeah, so we reached out to the school district, Jurupa Unified School District, and this is what they said. Jurupa Unified School District has not been served with a lawsuit from Ms. Tapia. The district will defend itself against any lawsuit filed. Jessica, Mariah will be following this case. Hopefully, they do the right thing. If not, it will probably land in the Supreme Court. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got it. So coming up, has anyone heard from Amber Heard? The actress quit Hollywood after her infamous defamation trial with Johnny Depp. Where she's heading next? But first, the April jobs report will be released in 1 hour, and Madison Allworth is talking to the people about the state of the economy.
Joining us this morning. So who exactly are the groups or the people who would be opposing a 30 to 60 day very sensible pause to see what's going on with the whales?
Well, it seems to be Ørsted, who's the company that wants to have the wind farms, as well as the Sierra Club and Greenpeace, which makes absolutely no sense to me because I always thought that those were the groups that were there to protect the whales and to create bumper stickers that say save the whales. And I think that they're being completely intellectually disingenuous here. We know that if this were an exploration for offshore oil drilling, that if one whale carcass were to wash up on one of New Jersey's shores, they would be surrounding that carcass, holding hands with, tears streaming down their face, singing Kumbaya.
Yeah, so I'm old enough to remember when, the Sierra Club and Greenpeace, their slogan was save the whales, for goodness sake. And now they're not joining forces. How do they explain? Have you heard anything from these groups? What is their explanation for not wanting to see an environmental impact on whales?
Well, their explanation is the reason that the whales and dolphins are washing up on our shores in record numbers is due to climate change. That's why we need to rush to erect these massive wind farms, which, quite frankly, a lot of people have now testified and believe that are contributing to whales washing up on our shores in record numbers. But it's always their cry. This is their mantra. This is climate change. And if you ever question their green energy agenda, you're labeled a science denier, a climate change denier. And just shows how despicable they really can be.
Well, it's interesting that the whales started washing up after the wind turbines went up, for one. But also, it's easy to get scientific consensus when you've basically censored every scientist that has opposed climate change. So that's interesting as well. So it's not just the whales. An estimated 140,000 to 328,000 bird deaths from collisions with the turbines. We know that over 100 eagles, for example, have died in the last year. So it's not just whales. These things have all kinds of impact.
Absolutely. So we're not hearing much from the Audubon Society. We also have to really question what the environmental impact is going to be to our commercial fishing industry, as well as our recreational fishing industry. And look, Cape May County, Atlantic County, Ocean County, and Monmouth County, tourism is the lifeblood of their summer economy. What are these wind farms going to do if whales and dolphins continue to wash up on our shores? We also don't know what, the erection of these massive wind farms are going to do to our ocean floor and what type of long-term environmental impact that is going to have on our oyster business, scallop business. So it's really been a rush to judgment. And as you eloquently stated, they have sort of suppressed any scientific evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, and let's not, you talked about the environmental impact to tourism. They're also really ugly, and there's a reason why rich people like John Kerry and others have passed laws so it's not in their backyard, but they're totally an eyesore as well. Well, Representative, I'm glad that you're trying to get to the bottom of this, but it's also exposing the hypocrisy of the so-called green movement and the Sierra Club and others. So thanks for fighting for the whales. Save the whales.
Thank you for having me, and it's purely not in my backyard mentality and, rules for thee and not for me, as you stated about John Kerry and all of the others behind the Green Initiative. Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting indeed. Still ahead, Riders Up. Janice Dean is live at Churchill Downs this morning.
Dean is live from the Churchill Downs with the Kentucky Derby Museum. Director of Communication, Rachel Collier. How's it going, Janice?
You look great. You look beautiful and handsome, all of you, this morning on Kentucky Derby Day.
Oh, we got you a monitor?
So listen, we're at... Yes, I do see you. I needed the monitor so that I could see your hats, all right? It was part of the contract.
Okay.
But listen, I want to bring Rachel in because we are talking about this spectacular museum and this really epic 50th anniversary for one of arguably the greatest horses of all time, Secretariat.
I like to tell people...
over here to fix my hair.
And so this museum has been a couple of years in the making.
Oh, this exhibit we have been working on for about 2 years because we knew that the 50th anniversary of one of the greatest racehorses of all time, we had to go big. And he is such an incredible athlete. We have beautiful documentary footage where he's seen in his beauty shots running through a meadow,